Have a seat. Nice to meet you.
Oh my.
I've seen your posters all over the place for the Himalayan Project. So this is Sally Hunsdorfer of the Himalayan Project. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I've lived in Marion since 1981. My husband and I came and started our career at Tabor Academy. And after several years, we left and settled in Marion. And we had two sons, Todd and Ben. And in 1997 and 98, we left two businesses. My husband was a general contractor, and I owned the bookstall in Marion, and we pulled our two sons.
I've done electrical work in there.
You have? I have. And we pulled our two sons out of school for a year and backpacked around the world. And we were very keen to celebrate and show them the richness of diversity in the world without fearing it. And so we had a world adventure, and one of the places that we landed in was Nepal. And it turned out to be our favorite, probably our favorite place in the world the whole year. And it was one of those experiences that I think you have sometimes once in a lifetime, for me particularly. When I landed in that environment, I felt like, I finally have come home. And I couldn't let go of that. When we arrived home at the end of the year, back into Marion, I couldn't let go of that. And so I made a couple more vicarious trips over there in the next couple of years. And then I started a dialogue with the headmaster at the little village school that had actually been started by Edmund Hillary, who was the first man to climb Everest in 1953. And he wanted to give something back to the Sherpa culture. And he had started this little two-room school in the village where I was living. And it was originally built to accommodate about 30 to 50 students. And over the 56 years, there were 350 students that were now coming to this school every day, and some of the children were trekking 3, 4, 5 hours a day each way to school, going to school and then going home and starting the process all over again. If they trekked further than about 5 hours a day, they were allowed to stay in stone dormitories at the school. But mind you, there's no heat, there's no electricity, there's no running water. It's just a wooden pallet that they put a blanket down.
But is that any different than what it would have been if they had gone home?
Probably not much different, except that it alleviated all that walking in either direction. No, it wouldn't have been any different if they'd gone home.
I mean, I assume there's probably a fire or something like that.
There is a fire. There's a fire pit usually in every home, so they can, get some warmth from that. And most of the homes are actually built so that the animals, if they own any animals, live on the first floor, and then you climb a ladder into a big open room where everybody eats together, sleeps together, socializes together. But the ingenuity of that design is, of course, that the heat rises from the animals through the floorboards, especially in the wintertime. So, so anyway, I started a dialogue with the headmaster, and I said to him, if money was no object and you could dream anything for this school that you wanted, what would you come up with? And he went home and thought about it for a few days and then brought back a little written report that prioritized all the projects that he dreamed about for this school. And I brought that home and sat down one night at the computer and wrote a very passionate letter about how Nepal had changed my life and the impact that it had, and sent it out to 300 family and friends. And they very kindly responded to this passion, and that's how the Himalayan Project was born, which was about 8 years ago.
Do you mind me asking, where did the headmaster come from?
The headmaster had been educated in Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, as most of the teachers are in the school. And the teachers are paid an extra stipend to leave their families down in the Kathmandu Valley and fan out amongst these mountain schools. And then they go home for vacation time.
Now, you refer to schools as opposed to school. Are there multiple schools, and are they like kind of all part of the same network, have one headmaster? Or,
no.
Or are they all
there are many, many schools. Most of them only go through third or fourth grade, because after that, the children are very important entities in any family for chores and contributing to the survival of the family. So schooling is quite extraneous in most circumstances. This particular school that Edmund Hillary built actually goes through grade 10. And in Nepal, you take a school leaving certificate exam after grade 10 anyway, no matter where you go to school. And that determines, how you score on that determines what your abilities to go forward are, what your choices will be. And so this year, one of our big projects for the Himalayan project is to add grades 11 and 12 to the school. Which is a big undertaking because we have to build classrooms and build extra dormitories, hire the teachers, outfit the classrooms, and the building alone is such a massive undertaking. You don't call up Home Depot and say, we're ready to start a project in a week. You go out to the glacial...
I don't think they have free delivery there either.
No, they don't. There are no roads, so that would be hard to start with. But you go out to the glacial boulder that's sitting in the field, and you hand chip all of the stones off of the boulder that then will be fashioned into building blocks that then become, the building blocks for the school. And they all have to be carried on somebody's back to the building site, and it's a long process. All the roofing material has to be either carried on somebody's back from Kathmandu for 2 weeks before they get to the village, or they're flown up in helicopters and then carried on somebody's back from the airstrip. So once you get out beyond 25 kilometers outside of the capital city of Kathmandu, the roads all stop anyway. So from that point on, anything that's transported around the country is carried on a human back or the back of a beast of burden.
Wow. Now, the goals of the school, I'm going to use the word school system, for lack of a better word, but or the network, whatever, of schools. Are the goals that the schools have in mind the same goals that the families have in mind? The reason I ask you that is because you had mentioned that kids often leave school at third grade because they're basically part of the economics of the family.
Right.
And when I say economics, I don't necessarily mean money. I mean just
getting
the work
survival.
done. Right. So keeping students till 10th grade is a whole other kind of culture.
Right.
It's like it's almost like going in and changing what the culture is to something that somebody else wants, and the somebody else in this particular case would have to be the school system.
Right.
Is that the case, or am I missing
Well,
something?
students, first of all, education is not a birthright like it is in this country, where by law every student has to be
formal education. Everyone gets educated one way or the other.
Exactly.
Einstein said that my education started as soon as I finished school.
Right. So anyway, so if the parents can't afford, the $10 a month or whatever it costs to send a child to school, then they don't get educated. But they see it as a way beyond sheer survival. And this school happens to be located, even though it's off the beaten trail, but it happens to be located in the Everest region amongst the Sherpa people, who are renowned trekking people.
Right.
And they've made that industry quite renowned around the world. I mean, Edmund Hillary made it to the top of Everest because of Tenzing Norgay, who helped him achieve that. So they do see it. They learn English, Tibetan, and Nepali all at the same time when they go to school, all 3 different alphabets. But English is the language of choice, certainly in the trekking industry. Right. Anybody who comes to trek usually can speak English. It doesn't matter whether you come from Asia, whether you come from Europe or America. So they see it as a way to pull themselves up and be able to earn a living, to be educated. A lot of these students eventually will make their way down to Kathmandu, where there is limited opportunity down there. The perception is that there is opportunity, but it's very limited. And a lot of these people, in order to earn a living, have to leave the country. And very often, if they have to go abroad and work, if they have some education, it, again, gives them more opportunity wherever they land. So it's a ticket beyond immediate survival. Right. And I think that when the parents are working hard to pay that $10 a month, that's what they're hoping for their children. Right. One of the goals of the Himalayan project is to handpick young women who are coming out of this school and offer them an opportunity to be educated at the university level and obtain a teaching certificate in Kathmandu with the commitment to go back to these mountain schools And I think I've chosen women for a couple of different reasons, but they are the backbone of many of these communities because so many of the men are off in the trekking industry. And so they're in and out of the communities. But the
Were
women,
you
I think...
anticipating my next question, or what?
No. What?
No, that's my question was why women as
Yeah,
opposed to...
well, and because the women will tend to settle down, raise families, and be the backbone of these communities. And also, because one of the things that I noted when I first went there is that the country of Nepal itself is 80% Hindu, and the national heritage is Hindu-based. The storytelling, the songs, the dance, whatever. And what I noticed when I would go and visit the village year after year, the school would get together and collectively do a little presentation with folk songs and folk dances. And it dawned on me that they were all Hindu-based, but the Sherpa people that live in this area, that are in this school, are all Tibetan Buddhist-based people.
That's what I thought.
And so the teachers that come up from down valley are passing on the national heritage, but none of the cultural heritage of the people is being passed on in a methodical way. So if we pick young women coming out of the school with the commitment to go back and teach, it's also with the commitment to, alongside the Hindu-based traditions, to pass on their own cultural heritage with song and dance and storytelling and language and all of that. So that's a big dream, because so many of these indigenous cultures throughout the Himalayas are being, just are disintegrating.
Right. Well, in a way, I guess the culture that supports the birth of Sherpas is kind of lucky, and I guess it's a double-edged sword. It's lucky and unlucky in a way. I mean, it's unlucky because I would imagine that the Sherpas are carrying up GPSs, Gore-Tex clothing, and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, a lot of them, I think, still go barefoot, but prefer
Yeah.
to be barefoot than to learn to wear boots and stuff like that, and that's a good thing. But the point is that they're coming back to their villages with all of this knowledge of
Right.
DVDs and
And the
Blu-ray
outside
and all that kind
world,
of stuff,
yeah.
right? And but they're going back and living in stone huts. So I understand why you decided to choose women. Although I don't know, are there women Sherpas or?
Oh, absolutely.
There are.
I've had treks in the 10 years I've been going over there where I'll hire, a good portion of the porters will be women. And
do the Sherpas actually get to the top, or do they just go to
no, they'll get to the top.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay. And the women do as well.
The women have done it as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a database of women of Sherpas that go to? I know there's a database of Westerners that go to the top.
Oh, I think
don't know if
there
database
is probably a database of the
everybody
Sherpas.
that's
They're very
supposedly
proud
on
of
top.
it,
Yeah.
and they see it as a real feather in their cap if they're given the opportunity to do it. I mean, they have to be skilled too. They can't just be carrying heavy loads. I mean,
Right.
they have to be skilled in mountaineering
Right.
work too. But we don't go to that. I've been to the area and I've been to the Everest Base Camp several times, but we concentrate on areas that are far more remote than that. The Himalayan Project is dedicated to the preservation of indigenous cultures throughout the Himalayas through education, which we are doing with our school project, through community service, community development, which may be anything from erecting solar panels in a village to creating clean water coming into the village, a way to get clean water into the village.
Now, that's something I didn't think would be a problem.
Well,
there.
you'd be surprised. Even the water that comes down from the mountains has giardia and bacteria in it, and I can't drink it. The Sherpa culture can, because they've
right.
been
Grew up
acclimatized to
with it.
that for so many centuries. But I still have to filter all of my own water right up, right to the base camp. And then the third component of the Himalayan Project is social outreach, and that's where I go into schools throughout the Northeast and present a program called A Day in the Life of a Nepali Child, which is fascinating to most of the students here because it's so vastly different from
Right.
how they live.
You think?
And then I ask them to bring in any of their used or outgrown polar fleece clothing, which I wash and pack and ship when I go every year. And I usually take usually 800 to 1,000 jackets with me.
Put some stuff in the box at Uncle John's.
That's very good because I'm collecting that periodically. And so I take usually about 25 of these body-sized duffel bags with me when I go every year. And then we trek into extremely remote areas around the country that mostly have never seen a Western face before. And we never announce that we're arriving somewhere. We just sort of, we have a destination in mind, we get there, we set up usually a base camp with all of our things, and then send riders off on horses to nearby villages, which still may be 3 and 4 hours away, to announce that we're there. And it's very humbling to see what people will do to come and get one fleece jacket. It's really, really incredible. And then I photograph the journey of these jackets from the time they leave the schools here in America till the time they're on somebody's back over there, and come home and revisit the schools when I get back and show the students, look what a difference a little effort on your part made halfway around the world. And it's very empowering for students to see that. I usually leave them, when I do my presentation, I leave them with the message that, you know, my passion and my heartfelt desires led me halfway around the world to this remote country. But anybody in that classroom can make a difference right in their backyards. It's just a question of, how do I dream? How do I go to the edge of the cliff, and how do I dream a dream that will make a difference somewhere in the world? So I don't want, you know, I've had a lot of great feedback from the Keith Middle School in New Bedford. I've been there for 7 years now, every year going into the 7th and 8th graders, and talking to them about this. And you know, probably most of them are never going to leave New Bedford, but it's very empowering for them to see that they made a little effort, and it made a difference halfway around the world, and they can do the same thing right in their backyards. And that's really what I want to leave them with.
Right, right. So you're going to be moving into Snuggies?
So,
I'm really only half joking. I mean, you bring them coats.
I bring them really any polar fleece clothing, whether it's pants, hats, gloves,
blankets.
Actually, last year,
That's why I was only half
ORR
joking with
Junior
Snuggies.
High School, we did the Himalayan project as a community service project for the whole junior high. And we went into the home ec classes. I know they don't call it that anymore. It's more scientific than that. But we made all the food.
You mentioned Keith. My sister-in-law teaches at the home ec.
At Keith. And they, over the years, they have done some things in that home ec class. They have sewed polar fleece hats and scarves and things like that. But ORR, we made all the food. And we showed the children, the students, how they cup their hands and eat with their hands. So they had to do that when they were eating the food. And they also, we got polar fleece by the yard, and they made lots of baby blankets, polar fleece baby blankets, which were highly coveted when we got into these villages for the young mothers. The health classes did yoga and meditation, so that was a nice introduction for them. The music classes did the song and dance. That was a nice introduction.
Nice.
And so it was fun in these auxiliary subjects to kind of fan out and get more of a feel for the culture than than just collecting.
It's a
the
nice
jackets.
family-oriented culture.
Yeah,
you know.
very much so. Very much so.
So now, what's that? Yeah, we're gonna take a look at some pictures, but it threw me off. I was going to ask you a question. Forgot what it was. Oh, I guess we should show some pictures then.
Oh, all right.
I forgot what I was going to ask you, but it'll come. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you before we do the pictures. On the website, the Marion
Institute.
is involved.
I am under the umbrella of the Marion Institute because the Marion Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So when people make donations to the various projects at the Marion Institute, and specifically the Himalayan project, it is a tax-deductible donation.
Okay.
So they do wonderful work in the world, and it's well worth going to their website and checking it out. But I am under their umbrella.
Good. All right. We want to make sure we got that in there.
Yeah, right. That's good.
All right. So let's look at some pictures. What camera do you want me to be showing them towards? 2? All right. So I'll.
You want to show?
Grab the
Do you want
picture
me
and
to
you can-
speak about them?
yes,
Or
if you
let
don't
me
mind.
see. Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
preview them over there, and I'll.
Right,
So
exactly.
you want them on camera too? Actually, why don't we do one, because it's kind of like right in her face. Zoink. It's okay if it's in my face.
Right.
Who wants to see that mug?
Yeah, right. This happens to be the village of Charikarka, where I live when I'm over there and not in Kathmandu. And you can see the mountains that surround it. look pretty big, but they're unnamed because they're small enough amongst the Himalayan range that they don't even have names. But this village sits at about 10,000 feet right here.
Oh.
So,
Bruce, you can zoom in even closer. You don't need to show any of me at all. This, because I think that this area of the village, I think, is probably...
yeah.
Lean it a little forward, get some of the glare on it.
Okay, how's that?
So,
All right,
yeah.
next.
This was a man that was taken up near the Tibetan border where we went 3 years ago. Actually, Jay Hurd was on that trek with me.
I was going to mention that,
Yep.
actually.
And he was on this trek with me.
I actually wanted to show the film that he, the tape that he had done.
It's wonderful.
I was hoping to have that edited, but
I know. Well,
there's only so much we can do
I
in a
know,
day
right,
around here.
exactly. So anyway, this is a Tibetan man that's made his way over the mountains and lives in the village of Metta, which were stone buildings, really just cave-like buildings that were built into the mountainside. So you can see he's quite indigenous in his dress.
How old is this culture? Do you know? Can they tell? Has there been any kind of history?
Well, the
taken on them?
Sherpas-
Did they keep their own history?
The Sherpa culture?
Yeah.
Well, the Sherpas are actually a tribe of people that migrated from Tibet about 600 years ago and came over the mountains and settled on the Nepal side.
Nice.
And so they've carried on all their Tibetan-based traditions.
Mm-hmm.
But Tibet itself goes back many more centuries than that.
Right, right.
So this is a picture of, you might want to turn it sideways.
Turn it
The other way,
this
yeah.
way?
No, that's
No,
upside
that's
down.
upside down. Hard to tell when I'm
Yeah,
looking at
right,
the monitor.
yeah.
Okay, there we go.
This is a Sherpa woman who is holding the two most precious things that she owns in life, which is a hunk of turquoise and a hunk of coral. And everybody hopes to get a piece of that in their lifetimes to be able to wear around their necks to ward away the evil spirits and bring good luck. And these stones are being mined out of the Himalayas. So as I say to the students in the classrooms, how are they where is coral found in the world? Well, they all raise their hands and say, in the ocean. I say, that's right. And that's because 60 million years ago, the Asian plate and the Indian plate were all under the ocean. And gradually over, millions of years, these plates collided and pushed
Right.
up against one another and pushed to the point where the Himalayan mountains were formed. So that's why they can mine these
Right.
stones out of the mountains.
And what is happening to the mountains in the meantime?
They're still
if
pushing up against one another.
No. But I mean, if it's mining.
Oh,
there's-
it's not.
There's
it's,
people that.
It's not serious mining where you go in and,
Okay, it's the-
destroy a landscape.
Okay, it's
No.
the people themselves
Yeah,
are just like
yeah, yeah.
chipping off the top.
Yeah,
all
right.
The
This
way
is-
mining should be done.
Exactly. This is just a stone nunnery. I don't
You
know.
got to get in close to this. The detail in this picture is phenomenal, Bruce. Just
Just go
zoom,
way
zoom
in.
right in. To my left? Okay. Yeah, zoom right in. The detail on this stonework is phenomenal.
There's one little nun in
There you go.
in a maroon garb that you can see, but you can see the stonework, how incredible it is.
And they're all hand-broken
All
stones.
hand-broken stones, exactly.
I used to do that when I was a kid, but not that many.
Not for 8 hours a day
No.
at 50 cents a day pay. So
I'm
that's
only
what
kidding.
that's what they're getting there. This is a picture of
Blue.
Everest at sunset,
Nice.
and you can see the peak to the left that's just poking up is Everest.
Uh-huh.
And that was taken from, my two sons were over there at one point and they were camping and they were lying in their tent taking this picture.
I'll bet.
So
And what's the other mountain?
the other one is something called a Nuptse. Lhotse or Nuptse, I'm not sure which one. But Everest looms over 29,000 feet.
Right.
And it doesn't look too far from where this picture was taken, but it was probably a 10-day trek.
From where the
From
picture's
where the
taken
picture
to
was
there?
taken, just
Wow.
because of the acclimatization that has to take place as you go up.
Right, right.
If you actually
You can't
walked
just-
it straight through, you could probably walk it in 2 days. But you have to acclimatize.
Right,
That's
right.
really serious stuff.
Yeah, breathing is important.
Breathing is important, right. This was a woman that we met on a trail one day. She was coming home from the local market, and her yak, which is her beast of burden there, and they can only survive above 12,000 feet, so you'll only find them in the very high altitudes. They're very furry and woolly, and If you take them below 12,000 feet, they would probably sweat to death. But anyway, the
Wow.
yak is carrying its own food probably, because you can see that the landscape is pretty inhospitable for growing anything. And she's carrying her provisions on her back. And so this is how everything gets transported through the mountains, and it's quite amazing.
Wow.
When you get to a lot of these communities beyond the airstrip where we land where all the expeditions land before they go to the base camp, many of these people have never ever seen a wheel before. The trails are way too rocky. So they're beside no cars, buses, trains, whatever. There's no wheelbarrows or bicycles or rollerblades or skateboards, as I say to the students in school. So literally everything has to be carried on somebody's
No
back.
rollerblades?
No
Really?
rollerblades, right. And it's quite remarkable when you see some of the loads that these people are carrying. I had a good picture here.
Are there, I'm getting a question, do they have a problem at all with bandits and things like that? Just, roadmen?
No, they really
No?
don't. It's a Buddhist-based culture, and a lot of that is based, the life that you lead here depends on what you're going on to.
Uh-huh.
The
Right.
karma and whatnot. And the students ask, are there policemen, in the villages? And there really aren't. There's a group of village elders, and if somebody stole something from somebody else, you'd have to go before them, and then you'd have to deal with all your neighbors in the village. So if there's any banditry, it's usually from outside the local population.
Uh-huh.
So, that does occasionally happen. But you can see the loads that are, they're resting on that stone wall there. And the basket is sort of the basis for the load, but then they build up and up and up from the
Right.
basket and tie it all together. And porters are carried according to the weight that they carry. So the more weight they carry, the more that they're paid.
Right.
They'll trek for 6 to 8 hours a day with a load like this on their back and probably be paid $1 or $2.
They got to be in shape, and yet they're not big people.
They're not big people. They are in shape. There's a lot of scoliosis and back problems,
Oh, yeah, I
especially
would think.
because young children carry loads that are way too heavy for them,
yeah.
at too early an age.
Right.
But it's quite remarkable. These
But
men,
they work anyway, regardless.
Oh,
I
yeah, they
suspect,
work
of
anyway.
Any kind of back pain they have.
Yep. And it's amazing because they take a leather strap and put it across their foreheads, and then it's attached to their load. So all the weight isn't really on their back, it's on their neck. And, I have friends that are Sherpas that say they've carried these loads, and when they take them off, after a period of time, their necks are absolutely paralyzed for 30 minutes.
That does not surprise me
No,
in the least.
exactly. It's back-breaking work.
Yeah.
These men are on their way to a local outdoor market to sell their wares, so they're under a time frame to get there. But no, they're
Seems like there should be a better way.
well.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a better mechanical way as opposed to a better fair way of
I
getting
know,
paid.
I know.
you know.
So this was a village. You can see in the lower right-hand corner there are some rooftops there, some blue rooftops, and that was
You mentioned roofs before. That the material was brought from Kathmandu. What is?
It's metal roofing.
Oh, they bring in metal
yes,
roofing.
metal
That's right.
roofing, sheets of it.
Uh-huh.
And and the same with some of the plywood that's used in the interior of the buildings. But
They don't
you'll
have anything there that's clay-like at all. I mean,
No,
I know that's
no.
obviously very rocky.
You get the
but
stone exterior walls, but then they try to put some kind of plywood in the interior.
what do they do for food? I mean, are they exclusively meat eaters? And
No. They grow the ingredients that the Sherpa people, particularly in this part of the world, eat every day for every single meal are rice, lentils, and potatoes. Now, the rice has to be bought at the
Okay.
local market, which is carried up usually from India or southern Nepal to the mountain areas. So that's how they get
and they've
the
been
rice.
doing this for 600
Yeah.
years? They've been importing rice for
Yeah.
600 years?
And
Wow.
potatoes, which they can grow,
Uh-huh.
even in this environment, in the summertime, this was taken in February or March, but in the summertime, potatoes will grow at these high altitudes.
okay.
And then they grow things like barley and wheat, which are cold weather crops.
Because they
and-
weren't growing potatoes 600 years ago. There weren't any potatoes 600 years ago.
Well,
I
they
mean,
have.
There were, but nobody was eating them.
Right, but they migrate up to this area, and they're growing them now.
Wow.
They don't eat a lot of meat because it's very precious. There's not a lot of it, and
And I would
it's
think
expensive.
the things that are meat are used for other things
Right.
besides meat.
And then they can grow cold weather crops like carrots, cabbage, onions, garlic, and so they supplement with that. They eat a lot of hot chilies, which again are imported in, but they serve a great purpose because it's their only source of vitamin C. They have no fruit, and the hot chilies keep their systems cleared out from all the bacteria that's getting in there. So that's a really important part of the diet.
Wow.
They start every day with a cup of yak butter tea, which is yak butter that's melted into black tea and a handful of salt that's stirred in there. And when I first drank it, I really thought I was drinking this sweet, milky mixture, and almost gagged on it. But it's more like a broth, and they really feel that gives them their energy to start the day. So that's what they wake up and have every morning.
Yak milk.
Yak butter tea.
Yeah. That wouldn't bother me at all.
Right? I was going to comment on the picture that's up there now.
Okay.
We've distributed jackets to the village, but there is a pimple of a mountain that you can see. Can I put my hand in there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right here is a pimple of a mountain. That is at 19,000 feet. And
Wow.
the mountain behind it is Pumori, and then to the right is where Everest is, and we climbed to that pimple of a mountain at 19,000 feet to watch the sunrise over Everest. It was
Nice.
quite spectacular. This might be a typical village, and the red building in every village is the monastery. So it's a very, very monochromatic landscape, other than the red building.
What do they use to make it red?
They have paint,
Oh, okay.
which they again have
Probably
to import.
it, yeah.
But there are parts of the country. Last year I went to an area called Mustan, which is right up on the Tibetan border, and the monasteries are all that color, but it's the rock in the soil,
what I was wondering.
and they
That's
crush
why-
the rock. And this happens to be paint, but
Now, that roof that's like right in front, Bruce, could you just go up
That's-
a little bit towards the monastery? And just a little to the, actually even to the right there. This,
it's a
let's
shingle
see.
style roof
Where-
with stones
yeah, well,
on it.
this one right there.
Right there.
That's not a clay roof?
No,
Really?
that's a metal rooth.
Oh.
Or if some of them are wooden with rocks holding
have-
the wooden pieces
like they
down.
do
You
in
can see the one
California.
below that has rocks on the roof.
I see, yeah.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, they do that in California.
Right.
They do.
They do?
They what they do is they have
Safeguard against.
They throw fist-sized rocks, cover the roofs in a lot of homes in Silicon Valley.
Oh.
It's weird, but what they do is they're usually membrane roofs. But to
Okay.
keep them, I think it's to keep the membranes down and collect
Right.
the heat from the day
Yeah.
and to
Oh,
dissipate at night. They
exactly.
put rock, just stones on
That's
top of the
a
roofs.
great way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
I was surprised when I saw that.
Yeah.
Needless to say. All right.
this is just a collection of children in the same village where earlier we showed the man. But they have hats on that were made by old Hammondtown school students in
Oh, really?
Mattapoisett. Yeah. So, but you can see that's hand-woven cloth that's just has a cummerbund around it, holding it together, and it's quite worn. You can see there's holes. in
And
some of
where,
it.
what is that? Yak yarn or what kind of? What is
Goat.
it?
There's
It's goat?
goats in this
Okay, they
area
have goats
too. So they, yeah. Let's see.
Around here, that'd fetch quite the price.
I know. These were just some children on the trail that I passed, and actually the children they're curious but apprehensive a lot of the times when they see my Western face because it looks so different from theirs. The babies usually burst out crying when I go into a village, but
Gee, what if they saw mine? Jeez. Babies do that now to me.
exactly.
Hey, that guy looks like a goat.
Yeah. So this is interior kitchen, a rather nice one in one of the homes, and she's making the yak butter there, and you can see the little girl on the left has some of the fleece on that we've distributed. So, but you can see in the
It's like
fire.
a restaurant.
I know the fire pit there's no such thing as baking anything because the fire goes into the area where there would normally, the firewood goes into the area where there would normally be an oven. So all the cooking is done on the top of the stove. This is quite a fancy one. Very often you'll just have a hand-dug fire pit in the middle.
And they don't have any kind of soot problems or anything like that, or?
Oh, yeah,
They do?
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
And how about lung problems because
Lots
of
of
it? Yes?
respiratory
Okay.
problems.
Yep.
Now, you can see in this particular area, there's wood that can be cut down in the forest, and people are given a quota about how much they can cut, because there's been problems with deforestation, and now they are replanting and reseeding and all of that. But in the higher altitudes, where the woman and the yak were shown, that's way above tree line, and so the only thing that they can use for fuel is to collect the yak dung and dry it, and then burn that. And when you dry it, the smell goes away, but it's very, very smoky and in these small little enclosures. So there are a lot of respiratory problems.
I figured. Yeah.
So
Now the trees that grow there, I know that they grow a lot of, it's what do you call it? Can't remember. Rhododendron.
rhododendron is their
Lollygrass.
national tree.
Lollygrass.
Lollygrass, yes, very good. Have you done your research?
Yeah.
I'm impressed. They grow a lot of those. Well, they're grown naturally. They are like our oak trees.
Right.
They're not like our shrubs here.
Right.
And but they don't very often cut those down.
They don't?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. It's a lot of pine, which isn't a great burner. And
You have a soot problem and
yeah,
you're burning
right.
pine.
And they've got oak.
They
A
do?
lot of it's scrubby, but the pine, they use a lot of that.
Because it's a fast grower.
Yeah, exactly. So this was just a stupa, which is a monument that's been erected in the mountains. You come across these all the time, that can be erected in somebody's memory. And you can see the omnipresent Buddhist eyes that are painted there, looking out over everything. But the color of the sky is so phenomenal. That wasn't touched up at all.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
at night, in the nighttime, since there's no ambient light, the stars are
Keep you awake. It's so bright.
breathtaking. And the
I bet.
moon glow, moon glow literally can keep you awake when
Yeah.
it reflects off the snow.
I bet.
It's quite incredible.
You can read by it, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's pretty spectacular. There were just a couple more. I took these pictures just to show many people are barefoot, and when you get up close to that picture, you can see
Can you zoom in a bit, Bruce?
what a hard life these people have.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
wrinkles.
again, I saw on that video that
Yes.
of somebody's foot there is just like, wow.
Incredible,
It
right?
really is.
With the cracks underneath
The bottom,
it.
yeah. It's like
exactly.
they grew their own boot.
Yeah. So many of the expedition companies that hire these Sherpas really don't take into account how they are outfitted. And many of them are not outfitted appropriately for the high altitudes and, obviously the footwear too. But I have a team.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a team that I work with every year. A guide, assistant guides, cooks, porters. And one of the things that we really make sure that everyone is properly outfitted before we set out.
Which leads me to the question I was going to ask you is there a boot program? I mean, do they want to wear boots?
They're
Socks and boots and
happy
stuff?
to get them. And there is a program that was actually started about 15 years ago by a young man from Maine who went to Nepal for his junior year and fell in love with it and went back.
That seems to happen a lot.
And I know, right? What is it? And he started a program called Porters for Progress. And part of it is he has a clothing bank where these expedition companies can go and for pennies they can outfit their staff. And then, they rent the equipment and then turn it back in
Just
when they're
a
finished.
quick question about that. I could see, now maybe I'm wrong about this, but I could see how people who weren't brought up in a culture that wore, never mind shoes, but boots. There's a huge difference between
Right.
a shoe and a boot. A shoe that doesn't fit properly will often stretch into the size of the person's foot.
Right.
That's not true with boots, and so you get calluses and blood, and
Right.
it's not a good scene.
Exactly.
Is that all taken into account? I mean, when these Sherpas go to get boots?
Yeah, oh yeah,
are they
absolutely.
really taken care of when they?
Yes, they are
get
outfitted with size and
good socks
Yes,
and-
exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you would think, if you're
know.
spending, $250,000 to get your crew to,
Right.
up to the
Right.
top of Mount Everest, you'd think you'd want to.
Well, the ones that actually go from the base camp to the top of Everest are properly
Right,
outfitted.
right,
Those
right,
are all.
right.
But it's all the guys, you know, it's the
in-betweeners.
200 porters that are carrying all the
Right.
food for the staff
Right.
and stay right at the base camp and then leave again.
Right,
Those are the
right.
ones that you
Those
have
guys,
to worry
you'd
about.
think you'd want to take care of them.
I know.
You know?
I know it. So,
Okay.
and it depends where we go in the country. Sometimes we have 35 porters with us. Wherever we go, we have to carry all of our own food, all of our cooking fuel, all of our camping gear, and then my 25 duffel bags full of fleece. Or, like last year, we had 35 pack animals with us because they were more readily available in that particular region.
So we're running out of time. I have one more question for you, and then I'll make sure you get all of any
Yeah.
other information that you want to talk about in. You had mentioned that they carry the stuff strapped to their
Right.
neck. That's got to cause problems. Do you know, or are there other programs or people that go there that work on that particular problem, trying to get them to understand that that's not really a good way to carry weight? It'd be better to put it on your shoulders or around your chest. Nothing like that's
no,
happening.
I mean, that would be
No,
breaking a cultural.
No chiropractors.
No, oh, absolutely not. There's very little health care, actually, certainly throughout the country. There's in Kathmandu, there are hospitals and clinics and everything there, but that's out of the reach of most of these mountain people to even get down there.
Yeah, yeah.
Once you get to the mountains and the remote areas, there's
Because it seems to me
Healthcare is
that
non-existent.
it seems to me that without changing the character of the people,
Right.
they could learn to carry things a little more scientifically and still be carrying things. Since it is what they do.
well, that might
know,
have to
but-
be somebody else's project.
Yeah, right. I was just wondering if there
Yeah,
was, and if
no.
you had known who they were.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you want to make sure that the viewers out there know about your project,
Well, they can go to my website, which
which-
is thehimalayanproject.org.
which we've got up here
Yeah,
right now?
and we, as I said, we take these trips every year, and I invite any adventuresome soul who wants a life-changing experience to join me. You just have to be in really good shape, and
Okay, so that leaves me and Uncle Chris out.
right, exactly. And who knows how
I think Patty
altitudes.
wants to.
You're right.
No, Patty's going
Altitudes affect everybody differently, and
Yeah.
even these guys that go to climb Everest have altitude problems, and they're usually in really good shape. So that we figure that out along the way. But
Yeah.
if you want a life-changing experience, I can offer you that.
Bruce, what about you?
With my knees,
Yeah, right.
I need a Sherpa to carry me.
Right, exactly.
They'd hurt their neck.
Right. So.
All right.
Well, thank you
Well,
very
thank
much.
you.
It was
You're a
very
beautiful
nice
lady,
to
beautiful
be
soul.
here. Thank you so
for-
much.
Thank you for all that you do for the world.
Yep.
It's a really nice thing.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to show a clip. Oh, we have a clip.
The
you're gonna-
Flintstones has been brought to you by Winston.
Right, exactly. That's about the Stone Age that we've been talking about.
Jeez. All right.
Oh
Well, thank
my
you.
God.